towards I-35 pretty rapidly. So if you haven't gotten rain yet, you're probably seeing it off to the west, certainly seeing lightning and feeling the outflow from these storms as they come towards us. Let me put this into motion for you. The line of storms continues its push on towards the east pretty rapidly, and it's going to be kind of a stormy evening for us. Nobody is going to be looking at stormy weather for more than, say, half an hour to 45 minutes, but as the storms trek on back towards the east, the areas affected will continue to see declining weather conditions before they start improving after the storms pass on through across our region. So, wider look at this storm. We have several watches in effect. One is the tornado watch that is in effect. The red line that you see there that runs from near Bruceville Eddy through Mahia and then back over just to the north of Carthage. That is a tornado watch. It's in effect until 10 o'clock tonight. This is the area that was most favored for really strong to severe thunderstorm activity. We also have an area to the south of us for south central Texas that includes Georgetown and Austin, San Marcos for the potential of strong thunderstorm activity as well. The differential is that the stuff to the north in the red shaded box has a potential for much more damaging weather than what we anticipate for the south. Nonetheless, the storms across the southern area will certainly see large hail, very strong gusty, very strong gusty winds. Let me stress that these winds will be 25 to 30 miles an hour sustained, with gusts to better than 40 to 50 miles an hour, a good likelihood for us as we go through the evening. Up and down the central Texas and the I-35 corridor, and these storms will continue pushing off towards the east pretty rapidly, but it's going to be a stormy night for us tonight. The anticipation on these storms, the timing should take them through the I-35 corridor and over towards the Brazos Valley by about 8 o'clock. I think that by about 9:30, 10 o'clock or so, they should be out of the Brazos Valley and moving over into East Texas. You may still see a few showers back towards Madisonville and Centerville, but beyond that point, most of this activity is going to be well out of our viewing area as we head towards midnight tonight. Let me try to pull up a different graphic here to show you the timing on the passage of these storms here. Give this a chance to load up. Never as quick as you want it to be. Here's the timing we're anticipating. The storms are now in that middle section, which includes Coryell County and Lampasas, Bell County, and Milam County, making their way off towards the east with very gusty winds, the large hail and the possible tornadoes affecting everyone from Mahia to Marlin, Franklin, Hearn, and College Station through now through about 8 o'clock this evening, and then later in the evening we should be looking at it making its way across I-45 and over into deep East Texas. Jordan's got some interesting looking radar showing up on Max 2. Let's switch over to that and let's just see what he's got.
So we're still at the point where we have that tornado warning in effect for much of Lampasas, passing into Copperas Cove, slowly starting to push over toward the flat region. Let me go ahead and actually put a tracker on it and see exactly how far out we're looking at. We're going to about 7:15. It's going to reach around flat. Leon Junction right around 7:18. Oglesby by about 7:26. But by that point, the tornado warning should have expired. So we are getting hopeful, at least on that aspect, if it expires within the next couple 15 minutes or so.
And the center of the storm looks like it has moved out of Lampasas County. Now it's into those rural areas of extreme western Coryell County. So I kind of feel like much of Lampasas can breathe a sigh of relief from at least the immediate threat of a possible tornado.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they just issued another tornado warning at about 7:02, so right now, and that, of course, is going to be for mostly Coryell County as that cell slowly begins pushing closer toward flat over the next couple of minutes. And, of course, we still have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect for McLennan County as well as Bell County until 8 o'clock. So that's another hour. We are just starting to get the outer bands of the actual system itself slowly starting to creep up on the I-35 corridor. Let's actually look at the actual rotation now from the velocity. We are still actually seeing a much more defined rotation right there. But again, it's not too terribly strong. What we really have at play here are two entirely different types of winds going on. We have those strong southerly winds coming right off the Gulf of Mexico. That has been constantly fueling a lot of the moisture we've been seeing throughout the day. High dew points, high humidity. You combine that with a lot of the very dry air coming behind the frontal system from the west. This is, again, the same kind of system that brought California a lot of that snow earlier in the week. You combine that and we get a lot of that quick rotation along the side of the squall line. That's exactly why we have such a high risk for severe thunderstorms, tornadic activity, as well as hail. You got a lot of that cool, dry air and a lot of that warm, moist air combining right along that frontal boundary. Now, typically we see a lot of that rotation within the actual thunderstorms itself, but you can still see, even just south of Copper's Cove, just how strong that little barrier alongside the frontal boundary is with those winds just by themselves. And we're still looking at some pretty strong sized hail as well. Radar is right now picking up anywhere between pea to nickel sized hail, but even farther west, we were getting reports of anything from about ping pong sized hail. So you definitely want to make sure your car is in a garage for tonight, or at least under some type of cover, especially if you are going to sleep a little bit early. Of course, I suggest you stay up with us and continue to watch exactly what is going on as this begins to push into the I-35 corridor. Severe weather is imminent, of course, in your location. You definitely want to take action. That is what we have those warnings in effect for. Of course, you always want to stay away from those windows. Cover your head, of course, if you are under the regions under effect by this. Of course, we are expecting some of those very strong threats to stay in effect throughout much of the day. Damaging winds, of course, damaging hail is still quite a high threat, especially within the actual cells themselves, as well as the chance for those tornadoes. Really, over the next couple of hours, I see this entire frontal system pushing well outside of I-35. Right around 9 o'clock or so, it should be closer to I-45. We're talking the Brazos Valley, talking Centerville, Fairfield, Mejia, but you can still see the actual defined cells within the storms, even just on future models. But as quickly as it comes through, it is going to be gone.
Switch back over to Max 1 real quick. I'm looking at the vertical velocity on this storm. Again, that's the mode that we switch to see where there's rotation going on. And the key is to see where the greens and the reds are side by side, and there's an indication of some kind of rotation going on. We certainly have the hot and the cold colors side by side here, but honestly, I'm not seeing any rotation inside the tornado warning area that we have across Corio County there. You see Flat and the Grove and Mound and Pearl to the north there, Topsy. Once you get to Topsy, that's right over towards the Lampasas line, and there at the bottom of the screen you see Copper's Cove, and over to the right you see Morgan's Point. So you get an idea of what we're talking about here. Very strong winds, and I want you to notice the wind arrows here, the wind particles, how they come sliding together. That is right where the frontal boundary itself is. They're close to Moody, close to Highway 317. I'll go over here and get in front of the camera and show you what we're talking about real quick. The frontal boundary is right here. You see how the winds are coming in out of the west. Behind it, in front of it, you've got the southerly winds, and that's the moisture source. The winds are coming in off the Gulf of Mexico, dragging in plenty of moisture. We've been very warm, very humid, very late spring-like, almost summer-like here the last couple of days. Well, that's what set up this situation. We have the very moist, unstable atmosphere across East Texas and back over towards I-35, while west of I-35, you've got generally drier conditions, not necessarily cooler, but drier conditions, and winds coming in out of the west and the northwest, helping to give lift to that atmosphere, and that's what we're seeing up and down here. When you start picking up that warm, moist air, you make it buoyant, and it becomes unstable immediately, and that's why we're looking at the very severe weather threat that we've got going on tonight across central Texas. In fact, much of the state, from North Texas all the way back down into South Texas right now. We've got a very strong line of thunderstorms. Let me bring you up to date. If you're just now turning on the television set, we have a severe thunderstorm Watches in effect across the area, basically south of Temple Killeen towards Austin, San Antonio. From that same area, basic Highway 190, Interstate 14, and to the northeast, we have a tornado watch that's in effect until 10 o'clock this evening. And the National Weather Service storm trackers have been looking very closely at this area here, which is adjacent areas of Lampasas and Coryell counties. They put out a tornado warning for this area until 7:15 tonight for very volatile weather conditions there and storms that have the potential for producing not just Doppler radar indicated tornado, but very strong winds. We're anticipating winds tonight in some of these storms to be as high as 50 to 60 miles an hour. So that's one of the reasons why we have the severe thunderstorm watches and warnings in effect, and the tornadic activity. And large hail is a very good likelihood in storms that can produce a tornado. It can produce very large hail as well. And the steering winds continue out of the west, dragging the storm system right into a very moist atmosphere that's parked across the eastern portions of the state right now.
I do want to say if you are able to do it safely, we also definitely want some pictures of any kind of activity that you see, whether it's from hail or even just damage after the storm. So just be sure, as long as you can do it safely, text us at 254-777-6000. That's 254-777-6000.
We want to see those pictures of that great big hail. Take a picture of that hail in your hand.
Ooh, yes. That way, even if it's next to an object too, see what we can compare it to.
That's right. Give us something to use as a scale to see how large it is. Let's see. What is the talk out of the National Weather Service here?
It's showing that they have now extended that tornado warning into Bell County until about 7:30.
Okay.
It was spotted near Fort Hood. Right now, let me see.
Yeah, I saw the reference to Fort Hood a minute ago. The good news is that this is, in most cases, is rural areas, but as it gets closer and closer to I-35, you're getting closer and closer to so many of our Central Texas communities. So with a tornado warning now in effect across basically the northern portions of Bell County, then we're awfully concerned. So we will be staying with you on the air here and tracking this storm and bringing you up to date on everything that we can find on the activity as it goes on this evening. Again, we have a tornado warning in effect for the storms that you're looking at there until 7:30. Yeah, 7:30. We'll move out of the vertical velocity mode and we'll put it back into the precipitation mode and put it into motion and put the tracker on it as well as my machine slowly loads up here. Now we went right back into velocity mode. Let's go back here.
You can already start to see a little bit of those outer bands of the actual just showers themselves start to push into the I-35 corridor just as we're speaking. What I have for you regarding the tornado, it's close to Morgan's Point Resort. It should be close to them right around 7:20, so within the next 9 minutes. It'll be near Belton Lake and Mother Neff State Park right around 7:25, and of course near McGregor right around 7:30. But of course, other locations that can easily be impacted by this tornadic thunderstorm include Pendleton. We're looking at Oglesby, Mound, Flat, Owl Creek, Leon Junction, and Meadow Grove. This also includes Interstate 35 between mile markers 307 and 309.
You saw this stuff this morning. You worked the morning show. We're getting our money's worth out of you today, Jordan.
You can say that.
You were watching this morning and noted that the forecast on the line was beginning to slow down. What did you see this morning that you thought would help make that type of determination?
Well, a lot of the model data has been showing a lot more development right along just before it hits I-35 due to those very strong southeasterly winds coming right off the Gulf of Mexico. And just the timing of this system has been very almost precise for the last couple of days. We were thinking right around 6 o'clock should hit about I-35. Then it started to slow down, and then a lot of the warnings, as well as the Storm Prediction Center, started to push a lot of the enhanced and moderate risks farther west as a result of it.
Well, you were on duty on Sunday with the threat of severe weather that really did not materialize for us, but did hammer Oklahoma. What do you see was the difference between what we're seeing tonight and what was going on Sunday?
I'm honestly not seeing too much of a difference between those two systems, because it was the combination of multiple systems. We have basically the warm front that hit us earlier by the weekend coming right off the Gulf of Mexico, with a strong Pacific cold front coming off from California, especially the mountains. It just depended on where those two systems collided, and on Sunday just happened to be in central Oklahoma, where of course you have a lot of the flat land and plains where you get a lot of that tornadic activity, and here in central Texas, well, we have the exact same thing. It's just, where did those two frontal systems meet?
All right, 7:14 right now. We had a tornado warning in effect for Bell County until 7:30, and probably going to be looking at extension on the storm that is the same storm affecting Coryell County, the Gatesville area as well. Here's the timer on the storm. We're at 7:14 now, according to the clock here in the studio. In the next 5 minutes, small community of Grove on Highway 36 should be looking at very heavy downpours of rain and incredibly heavy, strong winds, possibly even some hail. Whitehall on Farm to Market Road 2409, and Moody should be looking at this storm by about 7:30, making its way over towards the interstate at Bruceville Eddy by about 7:37. Lorena on the interstate about 7:42. Hewitt 7:47. Now, you may be getting the rain sooner than that, but what we're tracking here is this cell of storms here inside this tracking cone is what we're talking about. We're all going to get a little bit of this windy, rainy, nasty weather before the evening is over with. Cross your fingers that maybe you will dodge the bullet on some of the most severe stuff, because there are some breaks in this. It's not a completely solid line of storms, but it certainly has considerable lightning, heavy downpours of rain that don't last very long, hail, and the possibility of maybe even some rotation touching down in the form of tornado across the region. So this is the night to be keeping a very close eye on our weather. It's an early start to spring weather-like conditions for us, but nonetheless, we're jumping right into it, and you can really place the blame on the very warm conditions we've had for the last couple of days.
Absolutely, and of course, when it comes to a lot of these watches, warnings, advisories that we keep getting, a lot of people like to point out exactly where these storms form, and they typically storm almost exactly within the watch boxes or even alongside where we can expect this long, strong line of storms. Notice where this watch box ends though, and notice where the tornado is. It's right near the very edge. That's why a lot of these watches, warnings, advisories that come out, they also include the county in which they're affecting. So even though the northern part of Bell County is barely touching this warning, we still have that tornado warning in effect for northern parts of Bell County, heading toward Moody, heading toward Troy. So it basically means no matter where that watch box is, you want to be weather aware, no matter what, because that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on over the next couple of days. You can still see just how strong this system is as it continues to push its way through our region. We're seeing the main part of it hitting Hillsborough right now with that severe thunderstorm warning in effect all the way now until 8 o'clock. Of course, a lot of these northern counties are starting to see some of those strong systems coming through. We're looking at some very quick downpours in terms of some very strong rain, so also very strong wind gusts. Notice you see the winds, again, continually coming right off the south from the Gulf of Mexico, increasing a lot of that moisture content. The second that that warm air rises, this cold air tries to sink it, that's where you get a lot of that thunderstorm formation right along that frontal boundary. So strong winds are certainly going to be expected. We do have that wind advisory in effect for much of our western counties, or even going into central counties. That's going to stay in effect until about 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock tonight. So we still can see a lot of those very strong gusts getting up to about 40, 50, 60, even stronger than that heading into the late afternoon and evening. So let's go ahead and switch on over to Max 2. because I do have that tornado warning still staying in effect for much of that northern part. But let me go ahead and throw up the actual velocity for you so you can see exactly where that rotation is. We're still seeing some of that stronger rotation now just to the south of Flat, right in between Coryell and Bell counties as it continues to push through. But you can see exactly where that frontal boundary is. That's where those those winds mix, where you have that strong westerly flow, that strong southerly flow. And of course, we do have that thunderstorm warning in effect for the next, I would say, 30 minutes. Of course, a lot of those hail tracks showing now still about pea to nickel sized hail across much of the region, now extending into Killeen as well as Fort Hood, and it's going to continue to push farther through our region. Of course, those watches, warnings, everything in between are going to be something we want to keep our eyes on.
Seeing some reports coming into the National Weather Service of cloud debris and possible tornadic cyclonic cloud development. I don't want to say it was a tornado because they're not touching down for very long, just quick spin ups. But back in that area I was talking about earlier, along Highway 36 between Temple and Gatesville, near Oglesby to the extreme portions of northern Fort Hood, Fort Gates, in that area. Very heavy storms have been moving through that region. And we're getting reports of the sirens going off in Killeen. I hesitate to say that it is tornadic. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we've had a lot of the sirens being activated because of the strong winds. Winds that excess of 60 miles an hour, and that could very well be one of the reasons we're seeing the sirens going off in the Killeen area right now. Not getting any confirmation from the Weather Service on a tornado, and certainly not seeing anything in the velocity that would indicate a tornado in that area. But nonetheless, so you got 60 to 65 mile an hour winds. You're certainly going to have some damage, and that, I think, is what's going on in the Killeen area right now. Go in here a little closer. Yeah, maybe even some hail in that storm. Yeah, you're with me on Max 1 there. We're looking at the Coppers Cove and Kempner area there over into Killeen and Fort Hood. That line of storm just ripping through there, and strong winds with that. We're likely to have some structural damage. We've been getting reports of roof damage and tree limbs being broken along the frontal boundary as it has been marching across the state, and I'm sure that is what we're seeing over in extreme western Bell County right now in the Killeen, Coppers Cove area.
Especially when you have a lot of those very strong winds picking up, even if they're not going, even those alarms, if they're not associated with actual tornadic activity, we're still going to see some very strong winds causing some possible issues, especially when it comes to flying debris. As a matter of fact, right now, there is now a new tornado warning right in between Georgetown and Jarrell, right along the I-35 corridor. That is now going to be in effect until about 8 o'clock. Let me go ahead and grab some of the latest information off of that. So we have that tornado warning was just issued right now from the National Weather Service out of Austin and San Antonio. It's going to be for central Williamson County until about 8 o'clock. It is severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado moving east at about 35 miles per hour.
And we have new warnings being issued for Limestone and Navarro counties as well. Severe thunderstorm warnings going up just basically as we speak right now for very damaging winds. Well, the winds have really played havoc on our trees this year. We had so many trees that were damaged with the ice storm that we had a couple of weeks ago, and now more wind damage. So there are a lot of trees coming down. Trees start coming down, they fall on the power lines. We start having power outages as well. So there's certainly a lot of headaches from these type of weather events going on. Looking at winds across the area as much as 60 to 70 miles an hour, and that's sustained winds. that is almost hurricane strength winds moving across central Texas right now with this very potent frontal boundary that is making its way through the state.
When you have those kind of strength winds, just even straight line without the actual tornado, you can still see lots of damage, roof damage, shingles flying off. You can see fence damage. Basically, if you are on the road right now, I do not suggest you continue driving, especially with some of these very strong rain bands coming through our region. It's going to reduce visibility next to nothing, and of course you get blowing winds on top of that. You have a high profile vehicle, big SUV, big truck. It's going to make the risk for rollovers at any high speeds that much greater, and that's the last thing we want to see happen with you guys. Of course, we're going to continue to stay with you, see if we get any more information. I'm going to pull up the information regarding this, the tornado in Williamson County. Right now, we are getting, excuse me, the storm is going to be right near Granger and Bartlett, probably around 740. The Granger Dam probably around 750. So within the next 20 minutes or so. Other locations include Theon, Laneport, Jonah. Of course, best thing you want to do is move to a basement, interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows if you're outdoors in a mobile home, in a vehicle. Move to the closest substantial shelter. Protect yourself from flying debris. That includes covering your head, putting your shoes on. We are still getting about, a lot of these tornadoes are radar indicated, but we're still getting max hail size almost an inch in diameter. So we're talking about-sized hail, possibly even ping pong sized hail. And of course, once a lot of this stuff is over, or if you're in a lot of our western zones right now, I do suggest definitely sending us any kind of pictures that you have of your hail with an object to compare it to.
Yeah. Want to bring your attention to this area right here, right on the county line, Coryell County, Bell County. Switch over from max 2 to max 1 real quick. We're on the vertical velocity here. And this is what the area we're concerned about. Right along the county line on Highway 36 between Temple and Gatesville, certainly starting to see some type of rotation indicated here by the Doppler radar. That is where the biggest concern is for right now for Central Texas, for the possibility of something developing a tornado. You're looking at the area near the Grove and on up Highway 36 towards Flat, extreme northern portions of Bell County. I think once you get back towards the Flat, you're probably in the clear on this thing, but this storm is making its way towards Whitehall, Stampede, portions of extreme northern Bell County, and heading right over towards the McLennan County line as well. Now this area, please, now's the time to take shelter. Stay away from windows. Go to an interior room in your home that has plenty of protection, perhaps a bathroom, perhaps a closet, something like that, because it does look like we may have some development going on with the storm. There is a tornado warning for that area well, right now for the next 4 minutes, but I certainly think that it's going to be extended for at least another 45 minutes or so for the potential of development of that storm in that area right now.
As a matter of fact, just as you said it, the tornado warning has now been extended till 8 o'clock for the one in northern Bell County. It is starting to push its way into McLennan County now, and also extend even farther beyond that as the system begins to push through. Let's see, yep, 726, located 7 miles southwest of Mother Neff State Park. We're about 12 miles north of Belton, moving east at 45 miles per hour. So this is going to be just how quickly a lot of these showers, thunderstorms, tornadoes are moving. You do not want to try to play chase with it. You do not want to be chasing a lot of those tornadoes as they begin coming out of our region. We're talking about, again, 45 miles per hour, like especially driving through heavy rain, heavy, strong wind gusts. We don't want to be seeing a lot of that moving through. Of course, this is still going to be radar indicated rotation. We are still getting a good amount of those hail cores coming through the region as well. So let's go ahead and pop up that radar for you, see exactly what we can expect and what we're really looking at on max number 2, if you can, please. There we go. So we see the entire boundary of this entire system, very long line of lightning across much of central Texas, pushing all the way as far south as San Antonio and stretching as far north as Oklahoma City. So this is going to be just an overall massive system as it begins to push its way into our region. We're still seeing currently 2 tornado warnings, one of course in northern Bell County and the other one in Williamson County as it begins to push through. Multiple severe thunderstorm warning boxes throughout many counties across much of central Texas. And of course, we do have that tornado watch box, but of course, any kind of tornadic activity is expected outside of a lot of these watch boxes just because of how strong this entire system is. A lot of our western areas, we're talking Comanche, Hamilton, Brownwood, starting to see a little bit of that clearing, of course, so that is certainly some good news. If you guys are able to, certainly send us those pictures of any kind of hail or even just any kind of damage. Let me go ahead and pull up that phone number for you real quick, because that is certainly something that will help us out when it comes to reporting any possible damages and of course helping you out as well as the community.
They've got it on the screen.
Oh, there it is.
I figured Rob would jump all over that real quick.
Yep, so
And he did.
That's perfect.
Rob and Michael. Yeah.
That's how you guys roll. Text app to 254-777-6000, of course. Want to make sure it's going to be after the storm passes through. So if you are going to be along I-35 right now, do not be going outside trying to take pictures of tornadoes or any of that lightning. We value your safety. We do not want to see any of that. Leave that to the storm chasing professionals. Tornado warning, of course, in effect now until 8 o'clock for the one in Williamson County, same for the one in northern Bell County and southern McLennan County as it continues to push through. I got this radar slow down a little bit more. You can definitely see just that outer band as it pushes through. But notice the actual size of some of these cells. They're still kind of getting a little bit of that hook type shape, but this is not going to be more of those hook type storms. This is going to be a very strong squall line of these showers and thunderstorms. On the velocity, again, it's very hard to tell right now specifically where these are, and of course just how strong they are too. We did get reports of those tornado sirens going off in Killeen. But of course, we do have those reports coming out of Dallas and Fort Worth, and that's just due to straight line wind speeds over 70 miles per hour, which is enough to cause significant damage, whether there's a tornado associated with it or not. We're talking a lot of that loose fencing can go flying, patio furniture can become flying debris, as well as a lot of those old shingles too, flying off the rooftops. Definitely not a good day to be out on the road. You should be at home right now, of course, staying away from those windows, staying in, of course, an interior area of your building as the lowest floor possible. If you have a basement, recommend going there.
I'm looking at the timing on these tornado warnings across Coryell and Bell County. Right now, we're looking at one expiring at 7:30, but I have a feeling they may extend that one just for the potential of wind damage. The other tornado warning is the one that stretches over into Bell County and Coryell County. I don't think it crosses. No, it doesn't cross over to McLennan. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Over into McLennan County. That one is until 8 o'clock. That one will continue at least. And I think the other one, it's going to be iffy. We'll see. They'll see if they're going to drop it or change it to a severe thunderstorm warning for the time being.
Andy, within the last minute, we just got from our 6 News anchor Bailey Bates that the tornado sirens are currently going off in McLennan County.
Yeah. Again, we're not seeing the rotation showing up on the vertical velocity as they have been doing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The sirens have been sounding for the potential of very damaging winds of 70 to 80 miles an hour. Nevertheless, heed those warnings. Take shelter. Get away from your windows. Go to an interior room of your home and put as many walls between you and the outdoors as you possibly can right now. Take those warnings seriously. It may not be a tornado, but it certainly is going to be some strong winds blowing, and debris blowing can do a considerable amount of damage as well. So the sirens are going off in the Waco area, in McLennan County. We've had them going off in the Killeen area and Bell County as well for some very dangerous weather conditions across central Texas. Several strong cells. One we're looking at stretching out of Williamson County into Bell County, there just to the east of Nolanville on up towards Morgan's Point. That rural area just to the west of I-35 does begin to get onto the north end of Lake Belton and into Belton itself. Storms stretching up Highway 36 towards the Grove, over towards Whitehall and Mother Neff State Park, across the northern portions of Bell County and adjacent portions of Coryell County. Then we got another very strong cell showing up just to the north of McGregor across Waco here. It's to say the least, it is a very stormy night for us. And it seems to me, Jordan, like the line has slowed down some. We kind of felt like by this time it would be well past I-35. So the slowing down we saw last night, it looks like it may be reoccurring again this evening as the storms are almost parked stationary right along and just to the west of I-35.
Right, and that just means that those cells are just going to continue to increase in intensity as those southerly winds continue to fuel them. But we are starting to lose a lot of that peak heating. So we're no longer at the warmest point in the day. We no longer have a lot of that sun to give a lot of these storms a ton of energy, but there's still a lot of potential energy that is escapable. And of course, as everyone tries to seek shelter, you can stay up to date with live coverage on our KCEN 6 News mobile app. And of course, we want you to text any kind of pictures of those damages after the storm passes through to 254-777-6000. Of course, download our app for the latest weather alerts. We have our mobile team, or we have our digital team working on that immediately. And of course, we have you getting coverage on air as well as on our website. Although right now I'm watching this one just in between Georgetown, and it's getting right along the edge of the actual radar, and you can't see a whole lot as it closes in on the actual radar.
Switch over to Max 1 real quick, Rob or Michael. Looking just to the north of Waco here, I've got a storm spotter, a train storm spotter, reporting just about a mile north of Abbott there on I-35. 52-mile-an-hour winds being recorded in his mobile wind gauge, and very, very heavy rain, almost blinding. We can hear the rain now moving into downtown Temple on the roof of our studios, and the whole system seems to have slowed down considerably over the last hour and a half or so. I'm going to bring up a weather camera from downtown Temple here. Slow to load. There we go. Here we go. Take a look at that. There you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's yours. Okay. While you're showing that, I will load up a radar again.
Yeah, that's actually downtown video of right now our studio.
Okay.
And you could see just a lot of the rain continually coming down very quickly. Although localized flooding is not such a big threat with this actual system, we can still expect anywhere from about a quarter of an inch to possibly even 3/4 of an inch in terms of actual rainfall, which of course we could certainly use all across the region, considering, well, have you noticed a lot of that pollen all across the area lately? This is certainly going to help wash out a lot of any of those allergens, but of course we do have very strong winds kicking up a lot of those allergens, and afterwards I can expect some good amount of dusting as well, dust storms possibly going into tomorrow.
Got a new tornado warning issued for Bell County until 8 o'clock. There you go. We're zoomed in on the storms across Bell County. You see Salado on 35 there. You see Temple. We're seeing some very heavy rain move through right now. Again, if you're a follower of the weather, you know what we're talking about when we're looking at vertical velocity and looking for the cold and hot colors. For those of you who may not, we've switched the channels on our radar from picking up precipitation to measuring the winds. And the way Doppler radar works is it sends out a beam, and we track the winds that are moving away from the radar, and at the same time track the winds that are coming towards the radar. You're going to be looking at hot colors for winds moving away, and the cold colors, are the greens, the winds moving through. What does all that mean? Well, it gives us an idea of where those cold and hot colors come together is where the winds are beginning to shear, and there's going to be some circulation going on. And that certainly has been a big thing that we have been concerned about with these storms all day long today, watching them, because we felt like there was a good likelihood there would be strong winds and wind shear. And that would lead to the development of tornadoes, because a tornado is just winds going round and round in a very tight little spin, and all it takes is the winds going in two different directions and a little bit of shear, and you've got some rotation going on, and that's what we're looking at, a line of the contrast in inbound and outbound winds right there through Temple and right along the I-35 corridor. New severe thunderstorm warning is issued for Limestone County and Falls County as well until 8:45. That's not as dangerous as the tornado warning, but nonetheless, we're talking about strong winds, a lot of lightning, and very damaging winds affecting areas now east of I-35. And as we approach the 8 o'clock hour in about 20 minutes, that puts it about where we were anticipating it to be by this time. A little bit slower going than what we thought it would be, but nonetheless, it's still in progress. It still has a whole lot of punch to it. It has weakened some, but not completely. Strong enough that we have extended the tornado warnings that have been in effect that began over Lampasas County an hour ago, and now stretching them on up through Bell County and into McLennan County, and then severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for Falls and Limestone counties as well for the next 45 minutes to an hour for the region east of I-35.
Of course, that main tornado warning that we've been watching right over top of Bell County, it of course includes southwestern McLennan County, east central Coryell County, northeastern Bell County, west central Falls County.
And Milam County too.
Yes, it is in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. Of course, still going to be radar indicated rotation, but I'm still seeing at least some semi-decent rotation just to the west of Troy right now, at least on the velocity, at least on max 2. That's what I'm seeing. It's nearing Temple right around 7:30, although that's actually, it's already past Temple by this point. By near Bruceville Eddy right around 7:50, still seeing some solid rotation.
I'm zoomed way in tight on Troy here with the velocity, Jordan, and yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about. Back towards Pendleton, certainly looks like perhaps a hook trying to develop there. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not the most ideal situation that you want to see, especially when we have some of these very strong storms. I'm still getting just that radar indicated rotation as being the main situation. Hail size about 3/4 of an inch in diameter.
Well, the sun has gone down and the rain is coming down so hard, it's going to be hard for boots on the ground to be able to detect a tornado or even a funnel cloud drooping down. So we're going to be really leaning on the Doppler radar to give us some indication of what's going on here. Certainly we got hail showing up and damaging winds across the area.
And I'm still just surprised as to how absolutely large the tornado warning box is across the region, due to the fact that, well, we can expect, even just within that box itself, we're talking wind gusts well up to about 70 miles per hour, which is enough to kick off those tornado sirens across the region. It's also enough to cause significant damage to anything outside, any loose items, debris. Talking about potted plants out there. Well, I hope you brought them inside today.
Yeah, I just stuck my head out the back door here at the studio, and I'm hearing some small hail falling in our parking lot.
I could actually pull up to see what the radar is indicating in terms of actual hail tracks around the region.
And there you see on screen a live picture from downtown Temple with rain coming down really heavy right now. Again, we do not suggest that you get out and try to drive in this kind of weather because the rain is coming down so hard it's going to reduce your visibility. It's also going to be ponding. The storm's line has slowed down, and that has caused some concerns because of the very heavy rain that's embedded in this stuff. We had been hoping throughout the day the forecast models would be right, showing everything moving through rapidly and getting out of here, and that would leave us smaller rainfall totals, and we wouldn't be looking at a situation where there would be some short-term urban flooding. In other words, rain coming down so fast that our drainage systems can't get rid of it. And that is what we're beginning to look at right now. Some of these streets in the metropolitan areas are getting more rain than they can handle right now.
And on top of that, typically when we're in the drought situation that we are, a lot of the dry grass takes a lot longer to absorb any kind of moisture that falls on it than actual wet grass. Wet grass absorbs water so much faster than dry grass. A professor at one of the universities has actually done a study on that, and that shows exactly why flooding is so common, even though you get a lot of rain right after a drought, because the amount of just hard rock on top of the grass is just not going to be able to absorb any water. I'm showing right now those hail tracks across our region. We're looking anywhere from about pea-sized to nickel-sized hail just to the north of Temple. Granted, of course, this might be about a few minutes delayed given on what we're seeing right now. So, of course, you still have a lot of that hail. Of course, you should not be out on the roads right now because of that. Of course, if you're driving fast, you could cause any damage, significant damage to your windshield as well as to your car on top of a lot of that water. If you must be out on the road, wait until after most of the system has passed, because we still have that tornado warning in effect until 8 o'clock, and we still have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 8 o'clock. And at this point, given the fact that this whole system kind of seems to have stalled right on top of us right now, I don't doubt that the National Weather Service is going to extend this issue. Of course, best way to reach us and send us your pictures, of course, after we get past a lot of the severe parts, text app to 254-777-6000. Of course, download the KCN TV app for the latest on weather alerts. We're going to keep you updated. We're going to stay on the air throughout this entire system, as this is exactly what we expected to come through. Notice outside right now, visibility heavily reduced. Even with those headlights out there, you could see just how fast that rain is falling. Even those drivers, the drivers that are out on the road, they are taking it very slow, just because of all the very quick buildup of water. It's very easy to hydroplane on that. And of course, if you are in a situation where you do hydroplane, what you want to do is let your foot off of the gas pedal. Do not hit the brakes. You will just lose control of the vehicle. Maintain the straight part on your steering wheel. So steer straight, let off the gas. The last thing you want to do is to go into a panic, start drifting around, and of course crash, and that's the last thing we want. We care about your safety here at 6 News, especially when it comes to any kind of weather. We're continuing to watch the situation outside. You can hear, even just on Andy's microphone, just how strong a lot of that rain is as it begins to fall down throughout the region. And of course, you have the chance for lightning as well. But like Andy was saying, we had that big ice storm not that long ago. So a lot of the tree branches are very weak across the region. You add very heavy rainfall on top of it, and you are getting the potential for a number of possible power outages across the region. Not necessarily because the grid has any issues, but just because on a local scale, you get a lot of those branches falling right down on top of those power lines. you're going to have some power outages.
Yeah,
And of course,
there's some folks that have just gotten their power back on from the last time the trees came down.
yeah, and it's absolutely unfortunate if that happens. But of course, if you do see live power lines, do not approach them, especially with all of the significant water standing around. You could be electrocuted at a very great distance away from the actual system, and that is certainly the last thing that we want to see happen. But of course, if you do see any kind of damage as you head into late tonight, well past once this thing passes, of course, send us your pictures, especially if you see any of that hail. We want to see how big some of this hail has gotten, given some of the reports, because a lot of what we're getting right now is just radar indicated, because that's all we can rely on now that the sun is set, and now that most of those storm chasers are going to be closer to the Dallas region as opposed to here in Central Texas.
Looking at the rain here on the screen on your radar, just to bring you up to date on where we stand, we have a tornado warning in effect until 8 o'clock for Bell County. Severe thunderstorm warning for the western portions of Bell County, back over towards Lampasas County and up into Coryell County, and a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Milam County until 8:45. That gives you an indication of how slow this stuff is moving across Central Texas right now, where it had been barreling across the big country and into the cross timber areas out to the west of us. It has started slowing down now that the sun has gone down, and causing some very heavy rain problems, and the potential for wind damage has really escalated as well, as these storms have not really weakened very much. In fact, the feeling had been all along that once this line of storms moved into the more moist, more unstable atmosphere over the eastern part of the state, in other words, east of I-35 and over into the piney woods of East Texas, then that was where we would see the greatest threat of severe weather. So we're just now perhaps moving into that period in this storm's lifespan. We'll stay with this stuff as long as we have tornado warnings in effect across the area. It looks like it's going to be a wild night for us for at least the next several hours before it finally clears across I-45 and moves over to East Texas and out of our Channel 6 viewing area. We have not seen the rain developing just yet, and the Brazos Valley is getting close. Most all the rain so far has been confined to right along the frontal boundary and right along Interstate 35. You're looking at the vertical velocity on the radar at this moment, showing you where the greatest threat of severe weather is, and it's just very slowly moving eastward. So folks to the west, back into Mills County and San Saba County and Lomita and Lampasas County, on up into the extreme northern portions of Coryell and Hamilton counties, your weather conditions are improving, but along I-35 from Hillsboro to Waco on down to Temple and even into Georgetown and Round Rock, weather conditions are deteriorating. The further south you go, the further to the east that line of storms has pushed. So it's getting over close to Elgin and Camp Swift and Smithville, LaGrange. Those areas will be getting the brunt of these storms down south here in the next hour, hour and a half or so. And to the north, just now getting across I-35. So you're looking at weather conditions deteriorating across Falls County and Limestone County. And
Go ahead and switch it over to Max 1. There we go.
Okay. You're looking at deteriorating conditions for the northeastern portions of the Channel 6 viewing area, back towards Corsicana, and then on up towards Athens and to Tyler in that area. They'll be getting this stuff here in the next couple of hours as well. You're still looking pretty good over on I-45 from Corsicana down to Fairfield, Buffalo at Centerville. Winds are picking up, humidity is high, you've got a low dense cloud cover, but the rain has held off so far. Let me switch over to the precipitation mode. The rain is beginning to taper off a little bit here in downtown Temple, but it's still a very stormy night for us tonight. All right, here we go. Max 1, we're looking at rain coming down, a lot of lightning embedded in this stuff, but the worst of it seems to being moving to the east and improving weather conditions for much of the area west of I-35. Gatesville almost seeing an end to the rain. Clifton and Valley Mills, you're still getting rain towards Meridian as well, but again, that stuff is making its way over towards Whitney and the lake and towards I-35 around west and Hillsborough as well. So improving weather conditions, but still not completely out of the woods yet. Again, we have tornado warnings in effect across the area until at least 8 o'clock for Bell County and portions adjacent to that, and McLennan County and Falls County for these thunderstorms that are extremely dangerous. Winds in excess of 60 to 70 miles an hour being indicated in these storms. Not seeing a lot of hail, but certainly still seeing some embedded cells that certainly have the up and down drafts embedded in them that can produce the large hail as well.
So far, I was able to pull up the maximum wind gusts that we've seen across much of the region today on Max 2. Burnett was able to clock in max wind speeds of 62 miles per hour. Georgetown, 59 miles per hour. Temple, 41. Killeen, 45 miles per hour, and those are just the max gusts from throughout much of the day. Notice how much of Cameron, Hearn, College Station, they haven't really seen gusts over about 30 miles per hour right now, and most of that is due to the fact that, well, they haven't seen this entire system come through yet, but nonetheless, you still have some strong gusts even just ahead of the frontal system as it begins to push through, and then even after that too, still very strong northwesterly winds coming in at trying to push that front through, but right now it's struggling to make its way through our region, especially as it looks like some of these cells are slowly but surely starting to deteriorate just a little bit, or at least calm down in terms of intensity, at least in terms of rainfall. It's still seeing heavy lightning across much of the region associated with this whole entire system. Still some pretty strong hail cores as well, getting anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch to almost an inch in diameter, getting reports of ping pong sized hail. And of course, we still have that tornado watch in effect throughout much of our northwestern counties. And of course, that's staying in effect until 10 o'clock tonight, but you want to keep in mind, even areas outside of this tornado watch box are susceptible to still seeing active tornadoes right now. As a matter of fact, it looks like that the tornado warning just north of Taylor has been extended till about 8:30. Is that correct, Andy?
Yes, that's right. We're kind of looking upstream here, back towards the Bryan College Station area, as our coverage will continue for them as well as the storms begin to make their way towards our KAG viewing area. But that'll be perhaps at least an hour before we need to start doing that. Things are looking better west of the interstate. We still got a lot of cloud cover. Winds are still very strong out of the west. You should start seeing some clearing across portions of Llano and San Saba, Burnett counties, even up towards Lampasas and Hamilton counties as well. Those areas have been cleared from the severe weather watches and warnings. Still a lot of cloud cover. Most of the rain has come to an end, but still very gusty winds. And the winds may be the big story when we put this one in the history books, because we're getting reports of winds of 60 to 70, peaking at around 80 miles an hour across the area. Very heavy rains coming down right now, north and south, along and just to the east of the I-35 corridor. Okay, thank you. Let me know that we are simulcasting our storm coverage for the Brazos Valley now. Hi, everyone. This is Chief Meteorologist Andy Anderson along with Jordan Frazier. We're covering tonight's severe weather. So far, we're looking at pretty stable conditions for the Brazos Valley, but we're certainly looking out to the west as these thunderstorms that have been affecting the I-35 corridor, Central Texas, Waco, Temple, Killeen, are getting a little closer to you folks down towards Rockdale and Cameron and Caldwell, Calvert, Hearn, Franklin, as far north as Corsicana and Buffalo, Centerville, and down to the south. Really, if as far south as Houston, we'll be getting these thunderstorms before the evening is over with. Some good news, we have seen the thunderstorm warning expire for Hill and McLennan counties as of 8 o'clock. Those will be dropping. But we still have tornado watch in effect for much of north central Texas and north Texas until 10 o'clock. Does not include the Bryan College Station area, as we indicated during the 6 o'clock newscast on KAGS. We felt like the worst of the severe weather would stay north of you, and it certainly still looks that way. But that doesn't mean we're completely out of the woods as far as getting a line of storms rolling through Aggie land before the night's over with, because it's certainly bearing down on all points on the eastern side of the Lone Star State right now.
Absolutely, and we're still seeing right around McLennan County near Waco, we're starting to see a lot of that heavy shower activity and also even thunderstorm potential right near downtown Waco starting to diminish a little bit. It looks like I'm seeing less in terms of lightning strikes, less heavy rain across the region. We still have that tornado in effect for much of the area, including, it looks like Lorena, Bruceville, Eddy, that is still going to stay in effect. We still also have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 8 o'clock as well, so that should be expiring any minute now unless they decide to pop that back in. And it looks like we are still looking down farther south to Bell County. The main line of the frontal boundary has passed through downtown Temple, as well as Salado, Jarrell, and Georgetown. We still have that tornado warning in effect, kind of pushing in on Rogers right now, still set to expire within the hour. Let me go ahead and actually pop up the velocity on that and see if I get any kind of indication that we're going to be dropping some of those warnings, because it looks like we have some very strong winds right with that system associated near Sharp, heading toward Cameron, right around for that tornado warning that expires at around 8:30. Look at how strong, how bright pink in terms of actual velocity. That means essentially we're seeing some very strong winds. So it's heading toward Sharp right around 7:57, about 8:01 should hit Tracy. Cameron right around 8:12, and also Hanover by around 8:21, as long as it stays in effect for that long, which of course that warning is still on there until about 8:30, so we're going to continue to watch it, but still very strong winds. Whether it's going to be actual tornado indicated with the radar or actually spotted, we're still looking at some very strong winds across the entire region. Still going to be radar indicated rotation. Of course, biggest thing, flying debris. That's what we're worried about the most. Mobile homes will likely be damaged or destroyed. Damage to roofs, windows, and vehicles are very likely.
And that's why we suggest, remind you to put your shoes on, lace them up tight in case you have to go out into the debris-strewn backyard or front yard, keep from stepping on a nail or broken glass or anything like that. It's a pretty good idea to go ahead and have your shoes on right now. Be prepared for what you're going to find outdoors, because there's a lot of very strong winds, breaking leaves, tearing, doing some structural damage to buildings as well. There's going to be considerable cleanup across Central Texas after this one is over with.
Especially with a lot of these branches still just continuing to fall off ahead of, well, we had the ice storm, now we have this storm coming through. I can see localized flooding is becoming more and more of a threat, as this system was expected to basically be clear of I-35 by around this time at night, and it's still sitting right over top of us. So I can certainly see some localized flooding, definitely some drainage backup. And with the lack of rain that we've had lately, I can certainly expect tomorrow morning there's going to be a lot of slick spots. Any kind of just like oil or gasoline near gas stations is going to lead to some slippery conditions even once the rain has passed out. And of course, we're still going to have a lot of the tree pollen is just going to be all over your car tomorrow morning on top of maybe a few branches. So maybe give yourself some extra couple minutes to clear off your car going into tomorrow morning. And of course, the best thing you want to have is a garage or at least a place to park underneath for the time being, considering we are still watching some of these hail cores come through. And we're looking at pea-size, maybe nickel-size hail. Nothing too significant to cause any massive damage to vehicles right now, but still certainly enough that, well, you don't want to be. Why risk it? Why risk the damage? Why risk the chance for, an insurance claim, shattered windshields? That's just going to be dangerous. And of course, if you can protect your personal property in any way you can, certainly take the opportunity. I'm looking just north of downtown Temple, looking near like Morgan's Point Resort, Whitehall, Troy. Still seeing reports about pea-sized, nickel-sized hail based on our radar data. Not seeing a whole lot heading actually toward those very strong winds near Sharp, heading toward Cameron, as well as Hanover with that current tornado warning.
Glad you mentioned the insurance. Everybody, be sure and mark this down on your calendar because you're going to be wanting to know the date when you make those insurance claims here soon. Switch over to Max 1 real quick for our Brazos Valley viewers. Yeah, it's quiet right now. Skies are cloudy, not much going on, but the potential is there. So the Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm watch, which includes Burleson and Brazos counties, on down to Fort Bend County, Harris County, that's Houston, Liberty, Madison County going up I-45, San Jacinto, Trinity, Walker, Waller, and Washington counties, that's the Brenham area, Wharton County as well, till midnight tonight. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect until midnight tonight for the Brazos Valley. So it looks like it's going to be a long night for us here, covering weather as it makes its way through the KAGS viewing area as well.
Absolutely, and of course you want to stay on top of everything, so just text the word weather to 254-777-6000. That's 254-777-6000. Send us your pictures, send us your videos. Use the Near Me function on the 6 News app. Chief Meteorologist Andy Anderson and I, we use that app constantly. It's very easy. Just send us a quick little video, maybe explaining just like damage around your property too.
And you're
once
paying
the storm
cash
is
too,
over.
aren't you?
What's
Oh, I must have misunderstood that. I thought you were paying cash for those pictures. Oh, never mind.
If I, I'd be making bank on days like today, but looks like a lot of those warnings have actually expired now. We still have that tornado right around Cameron. That tornado warning is in effect until about 8:30. We now have a new severe thunderstorm warning. This includes cities like Cameron, Rosebud, Marlin, Groesbeck, including Franklin. That's going to stay in effect until about 8:45 tonight, and it's going to start closing in, heading toward College Station and Caldwell. Although it looks like right now they are currently under a severe thunderstorm watch box. But if I've learned anything about today, Andy, it's that you can't just trust the boxes. The boxes are going to be the most likely area, but I mean, we've been seeing tornadoes pop up well outside that tornado watch box today.
And I try to remind folks of that, the old saying, horseshoes and hand grenades. Even though you may not find yourself included in a watch box or warning box, if it's close, then you're still in the danger zone. Look at the radar right now. We've got a very intense cell moving across the extreme eastern portions of Bell County over into northern Milam County right there. You see San Gabriel and Sharp and Buckholz. Buckholz is getting a little break from the heavy downpours of rain, but that stuff just to the west is about to move into you. Look how dark the reds are showing up south of Buckholz, back down towards Sharp. That is some incredibly heavy rain coming down. Could even have some hail embedded in that stuff as well for that kind of reflective return showing up on the Doppler radar.
You can also see just how strong the winds are coming off the radar too. With we're talking probably 50, maybe even 60 mile per hour wind gusts with that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason why we have seen a couple of these tornado warnings issued tonight, and why the sirens have gone off in several communities. The damage from those strong thunderstorm winds can be comparable to tornadic damage. So, you hear the sirens going off. They may not be an actual funnel cloud touching down, but you certainly are in the path of some wind damage, and we've preached gospel and verse on the wind damage going on this evening across the area. So be mindful of that. I really worry about tree limbs falling on power lines and causing some power outages, because there's still folks that were just now, the last few days, beginning to get their power back on from the last time we had these thunderstorms coming through and knocking tree limbs down and causing the limbs to fall on power lines and causing power outages once again for us.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate when you see a lot of that situation taking place across the region. Let's go ahead and switch on over to Max number 2. I want to go ahead and actually just zoom out on the big picture, see exactly how far this system has made it through over the last couple of hours. You can really see it right in between 7 o'clock, the time stamp, and between 8 o'clock. Just once it hits I-35, it almost comes to a standstill. And of course, this is a multi-state system as it pushes through central Texas. We're talking, the bottom right now is right near San Antonio. The northern tip going to be extending all the way well into central Oklahoma. Notice all of these severe thunderstorm watch boxes, warning boxes, severe tornado watch boxes, and tornado warning boxes. We're going to stay with you on the air until this entire system pushes through. Of course, right now, Waco is still going to be under that tornado watch box, moving, of course, across Mejia, Fairfield, Corsicana, and also farther to the northwest. That, of course, is going to stay in effect. But, of course, we're still seeing tornadic activity well outside of those boxes. And I'm talking more closer toward Temple, even heading toward Cameron right now. We still have that tornado warning in effect until about 8:30 tonight. And there's still that severe thunderstorm warning. And, of course, severe thunderstorms do have the possibility of creating tornadoes, but most of them get the actual severe thunderstorm status due to the fact that they're having winds well over 50, maybe even 60 miles per hour in terms of gusts. We're also talking about anything from about ½ an inch in size or higher in terms of diameter for hail. So just strong winds and hail alone, or even just by themselves, are enough to give a thunderstorm severe status. Of course, we still have that tornado warning in effect. As you look farther out, you still see just a very well-developed cell pushing toward Cameron. We're looking at some very heavy rain. And of course, as this system continues to push through, we're basically expecting higher chances of localized flooding, considering this is moving a lot slower than we originally anticipated. Granted, it is expected to weaken as we head into the late overnight hours, considering much of the fuel from this is going to be from heavy sun, a lot of energy from the sun. And of course, now that, well, it's past sunset, we're not seeing a whole lot of that sun, but we still have that very strong southerly wind bringing a lot of moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. That's what's really fueling a lot of these showers, thunderstorms, and tornadic activity. I'm still looking at that very bright pink right around Cameron right now, heading toward the highway. That is really that indicated rotation on the radar as it begins to push through. We're still watching a couple of those hail cores too, most of which, strongest ones I've seen, about P to nickel size hail according to the radar. That's going to be just north of Temple as well as near Whitehall. Of course, throughout much of today, you want to know what the difference between the watches and the warnings are. Conditions, of course, are going to be favorable for severe weather under watches, but of course, you want to pay close attention, but you definitely want to take action where we're talking about severe weather warnings. Of course, best way to do it, what to do, get to the lowest level of your home, away from windows, put shoes on, and cover your head. Of course, you definitely want to stay on top of it. Here is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center going into later today. Actually, Andy Anderson, what do you have you got?
Well, I was just putting the tracker on this line of storms. They're not quite as severe the further north you go. We do still have a tornado warning for Milam County as these storms just to the south of Buckholz are marching towards Cameron. But as the squall line keeps on going towards the east, we are still looking at deteriorating weather conditions for Groesbeck, Thornton, Reagan, on down towards Calvert and Cameron as well. Putting the tracker on it, I got 8:12 showing on the clock there. It should be moving into Cameron very shortly. Calvert within the next 10 to 15 minutes. If it keeps on moving, if it slows down anymore, it may take a while. But Gaz, you're looking at about 8:30, and Hearn about 8:34. Should be over towards Buffalo on I-45 by about 8:45. That's about half an hour from now. Benchley about 8:47, Centerville on I-45 about 8:55, and North Zulch down in the Brazos Valley probably about 9 o'clock or so if these storms just keep on moving here. Again, we have a tornado warning in effect for central portions of Milam County that do include Cameron. We do not have confirmation of a tornado there, but we certainly have strong damaging winds moving through that area from Bell County and Williamson County, trucking off towards the east very rapidly towards Rockdale and Cameron and Rosebud, lot area there that could cause some extreme damage for folks there in Milam County with that storm moving in.
I'm also watching just the amount of lightning strikes right around that entire system too are beginning to pop up a lot more, kind of right developed just to the west of downtown Cameron. I can see that at least on my radar. It looks like right near Buckholz we're seeing that kind of pop up. But let me go ahead and actually pull it up on velocity because I'm still seeing some very strong winds popping up on our vertical velocity data, and it's showing again enough that even just well without the possibility of that radar indicated tornado, we're still looking at some very strong winds. And of course, this is actually combining past the frontal boundary. You can actually see where that frontal boundary is, closer toward Elevation, Valley Junction, out to the west on the map there. And that's really where you're seeing a lot of those strong showers and thunderstorms combining. It looks like it's closer toward Minerva. Let me go ahead and see if I can get some actual data on how strong those winds are popping up. We're getting velocity.
Well, they're saying close to 60-mile-an-hour winds in that area, from Washington on the Brazos all the way up to near Cameron. 50 to 60-mile-an-hour winds embedded in these storms. Hence the severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect there, and a tornado warning that still lingers across Milam County.
Absolutely. And like you said, those winds are just extremely strong. Of course, you can certainly expect, looks like, 60-mile-per-hour winds. I'm getting about penny-sized hail.
I was about to say, they're measuring it at 3/4 of an inch, 0.75, so yeah, that's lots of hail still showing up.
Of course, we still have that general just tornado watch in effect throughout much of the region until 10 o'clock. Of course, for your protection, get inside sturdy structure, stay away from windows, expect damage to a number of different objects. Even just with the wind alone, you're possibly talking about a lot of your siding for your buildings, for your car, anything like that. Anything that's going to be in the direct path of some of these very strong westerly winds are going to lead to some small damage. Of course, definitely want to stay inside. You do not want to be out on the roads. Interestingly enough, once this entire system passes, we're still going to be left with a lot of those very strong westerly winds going into tomorrow, and kind of similar to what we saw happening on Sunday. So Sunday, we had that tornado outbreak in central Oklahoma. What's causing this tornado outbreak is almost identical. You still had a warm front come up from the Gulf of Mexico. You had a Pacific cold front come in from the west. It combined, it created the ingredients for some severe weather. It's exactly what we're seeing here. Right after that, those strong westerly winds kicked up a lot of dust and sand up in West Texas and slowly started to push its way into our region, causing a number of poor air quality situations. And I see that happening as we head into Friday morning. So definitely want to keep that in mind. Maybe have that air purifier on first thing in the morning, as long as you still have power, of course. At least I'm suffering terribly from a lot of that bad air quality.
I can hear it in your voice. I hear a little bit of scratchiness going on there. One thing most people don't realize is that individual thunderstorm has a lifespan of about 25 to 30 minutes. They collapse, the outflow creates cold air at the ground level, which causes lift and gives birth to another thunderstorm. So even though one storm collapses, another one begins to build up. And what we're seeing now suggests that the outflow from these storms may be outrunning or outpacing the circulation in some of these storms, so that perhaps the tornado threat over Milam County is not quite as dangerous as it was, say, 10 minutes ago, 15, 20 minutes ago or so. They're going to continue with the tornado warning for Milam County for the time being, but it's a better looking prognosis. Let's put it that way. Things are looking better across that area right now. Still very heavy rain going on. The storm cells, looking at the radar here, yeah, you're on the same one that I'm on. You look at these, the cells themselves are beginning to break down a little bit. We still have almost a solid wall of rain, but the big cells are beginning to shrink down a little bit. Some of this activity beginning to lose a lot of its punch. It's still raining heavily. Not seeing nearly as many hail cores, and the radar suggests to me that the winds are dropping off as well from what I'm looking at.
And of course, that's certainly going to be some good news, especially for a lot of the localized flooding, especially as people start to get back to, work and school tomorrow. The last thing we want is for these roads to still be flooded throughout the day, although given how much slower this system is sticking around, one could only guess just how much of that localized flooding, especially given our drought situation.
Well, the flooding is the problem in town, where it comes down faster than the drainage systems on our streets can handle it. Out in the rural areas, I'm pretty sure the farmers and ranchers are pretty happy with the rains that we're getting across the area.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're certainly doing a lot better this time of the year than we were last year, but we're still under the extreme drought conditions, especially west of I-35, and this was the exact kind of system we needed. That much of the western region just doesn't get a whole lot of these significant showers, thunderstorms.
It will
or
be
even
interesting.
rainfall.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what the areas west of I-35 from communities like Gatesville and over towards Goldthwaite and up towards Hamilton, and then west out towards Winters and Ballinger and San Angelo and up towards Abilene, see what kind of rains they got. I'm looking at the radar now out to the west, and we're still seeing isolated showers not associated with that squall line popping up and moving out of the hill country, out of the Edwards Plateau, and these storms are moving almost due north out there to the west. Put a track on that real quick and see what we got here with this. We'll go out towards Fredonia here, and we'll track that storm back to the north, because this sure looks like Goldthwait through about to get another splash of rain real quick. Same thing for Pretty and San Saba. Between now and about 9 o'clock, you've got another little splash of rain coming your way if those storms will hold together.
And they look like they're moving a lot faster
Yeah,
than
they really
the
do.
initial squall line
Yeah.
that we're still seeing just sit right over top of Central Texas.
Somebody just sent me an email. Let me see what that said. Yeah, a friend on Facebook says that he's seeing small storms out to the west as well. I think that's the exact ones that we're looking at right here, right now. Where's my little eraser? There it is.
And of course, if you have any kind of pictures whatsoever, of course, be sure to text weather to 254-777-6000. Download the KCEN TV app for the latest in terms of alerts. Use the Near Me video setting. Send us your videos, your pictures. If you send us any kind of hail, we haven't been seeing a whole lot of it pop up on radar, but we are getting a lot of reports of that. So even if you send it to us in the morning, of course, we're going to be on in the morning on Texas Today. At least I am. We're going to be talking about all those chances.
What is this we?
You're staying up with me tonight, Andy. That's
Yeah, it certainly looks like I'll be here till midnight tonight. You'll have to roll out your bedroll and get a cot ready for the Texas Today festivities.
Especially considering this line of storms is supposed to be in College Station right now, the Brazos Valley, and it's barely making it through Cameron right now. And of course,
look out west, out through the hill country, out to the Edwards Plateau. There's a little wave, a little instability that is rolling over on top of those surface winds. And we're seeing additional rain. None of this looks like it's severe, but boy, there's still quite a few little cells cropping up from down around Johnson City and Fredericksburg on up to Marble Falls and Llano, and San Saba got another splash of rain there. Nothing of real consequence. The big story still continues to be this squall line that kind of runs parallel to I-35. Now it's east of I-35, and better weather conditions should be improving across many of our Central Texas communities: Lampasas, Killeen, Temple, Gatesville. About to get another little splash of rain. I think that you'll probably get a little more rain for Hamilton as well, and then on up into Bosque County. But the big storms, the ones that we have been staying on the air for, are now moving over east of the I-35 corridor, and still looking at a pretty solid line of showers and even some thunderstorms from Sulphur Springs on down to Corsicana and down to Mahias. They're not as strong as they were 30 minutes ago, but nonetheless, you've still got some rather gusty winds in that, and maybe some small hail. I wouldn't be surprised to see some penny-sized hail and that stuff there. And it curls its way on back down through Limestone County and DeFalls County, there around Marlin, and to Rosebud Lot. They were getting a pretty good shower over in Chilton a little while ago. That's moved on out of there, but the rain continues down into Cameron, and we still have that tornado warning for Milam County for storms approaching and moving through Cameron right now. Actually, it's right on top of Cameron.
And it looks like it's weakening. I'm seeing the cell itself. It looks like it's slowly starting to fall apart.
Yeah. Let's see if I can move over here. Come here, you. Move over. That's what the Weather Service's guys were saying as well as they looked inside of the storm. They weren't seeing the rotation threat any longer because the outflow was really weakening these storms. But you still have the straight line damage. And hey, here's some good news. The tornado warning for Milam County has been expired for the Weather Service just a moment ago. So I think that we can kind of wrap up our coverage here for the time being. The tornado watch remains in effect until midnight tonight back to the north of the Waco Temple Killeen area, back towards northeast Texas. But a lot of that activity is moving on out of our viewing area. We'll send it back to the network programming, and we will be here in case we need to cut back in. Not going anywhere. But right now we have the tornado watch in effect. We've got severe thunderstorm watches in effect. We've got storms in progress across the area. But the storms that we're watching at this moment have dropped down below the severe limits. So stay tuned to 6 News and KAGS, and we will keep you ahead of the storm.